Hello and welcome back to JL Sixth Form, the channel giving you the latest news and information on everything related to Key Stage 5. If this is your first time here, don't forget to subscribe by clicking on the icon below. Today I'm going to be talking about how to structure your personal statement, so stay tuned because I've got information coming up for you right now. It has to be said that other than exams, I find that personal statements are one of the things that stresses students in sixth form out the most, and I can understand why you want to make a good impression. Mostly our students tend to worry about boasting and showing off, and I've got some really good news for you if you feel the same way. And that is exactly what you do not have to do. You have to celebrate and articulate and express your passion and your interest in a particular subject. This is not about showing off, it's about showing your interest for a particular subject that you are applying for. So you need not worry about sounding like a bit of a show-off. That being said, there are other barriers. I would say one of the biggest of which is simply not having enough to discuss. Now, the only remedy for that really is to be making sure that you are doing things and have done things that you can discuss. Otherwise, you will just be staring at a blank screen for a very long time when it comes to writing your statement. So if you're at that stage, where you think you haven't done enough, right, before you start putting pen to paper or typing on a keyboard, go out there and listen to some relevant podcasts, watch some relevant documentaries, do some relevant reading, get some work experience, and do it quickly before you start writing your personal statement. Otherwise, it will be a bit of a nightmare. So here's some advice on structure. I tend to advise people to divide it into 4 sections, and I'm going to be explaining those 4 sections right now. Section 1. Now, this is not a definite. You don't have to do this, but what I find is one of the simpler ways to sort of get going is to explain why it is you're interested in a particular course. So the section 1 could be all about why. Why are you interested? And be honest. Try not to get into cliches. I'll do another video on that another time. Be honest, make it personal to you, because obviously that is what makes this a personal statement. You're the unique thing about you, so don't try to say what you think people want to hear, or copy someone else's, or as I say, go for some sort of cliche, but like having a quote at the start. Make it personal and be honest. Now, for most people, they become interested in a particular subject, in a particular course, within the last couple of years. It's highly unlikely that you started getting an interest in marine biology when you were 5 years old. And if you do say that, you're not going to be believed. Your interest probably came when you were studying something in comprehensive school, maybe at GCSE or certainly at A-level. Now, if that is the case, then definitely talk about that. Your interest might also stem from the fact that you want a career in that sort of area. Again, if that is true, then fine, go for that. That will be interesting to talk about. So who or what sparked your interest? Was it something that you read? Was it to do with a certain teacher that you found inspiring? Was it to do with a TV program that you watched, like a documentary or something? So what was it that sparked this interest? Now, don't go on and on about this, because the reader is only going to have a limited amount of interest in how it was that you became interested in a particular subject. So you could just start off with this, but don't make this section particularly long. We're talking maybe 5 or 6 lines here. Now, on to section 2. Section 2 is the really meaty part of the personal statement. It is where you talk about the things that you have done that demonstrate your interest in that particular subject. Now, you may well divide up this section into a couple of paragraphs, let's say 2 or 3, but it's still part of the same section. What have you done that demonstrates an interest? Now, when it comes to that, here's a couple of tips. You can talk about any of the following. What you've been studying in school, whether it's your GCSEs or A-level, probably most likely to be A-level. You might discuss work experience that you've done, relevant books that you've read, or articles from journals that you've read. It might be podcasts that you listen to, films that you've watched, documentaries you've watched, radio programs on Radio 4 that you might have listened to. All those sorts of things are relevant, and you explain what you did and what you learned from it, and how it has developed your interest in that subject and what you're looking forward to studying in the future as a result of that. I'm going to do another video where I talk in more detail about how you can write a fantastic section 2 so it doesn't just turn into a shopping list of the things that you've done. Now, on to section 3. Section 3 could be considered your extracurricular and skills section. It's where you can talk about the things that you've done that don't precisely relate to a certain course that you're applying for, but they might relate to university study more generally. So for instance, you might have a part-time job that's really developed your organisational skills. That's great. That's relevant to university study because you've got to be organised when it comes to studying a degree. You might have developed your communication skills from being in their debating society, and whilst at first hand that might not seem to be exactly that relatable to your study of geography, for instance, it is handy to have good communication skills when in university because it'll be fantastic fun in debates and discussions to have you chipping in a very confident and articulate way. So you can definitely make these things relevant. And you can do that in section 3, as I say, where you talk about your skills and experiences that you've had that aren't directly related to your course, but they may well be related to degree study. And finally, section 4. Section 4 is arguably the shortest section. It tends to be for my students anyway, and that's where they kind of wrap things up, almost like a conclusion. And it's one of the sections that tend to worry students the most. How do they wrap up their personal statement? Well, I always think it's quite nice to be positive at the end and talk about the future, maybe what you're looking forward to, what a career aspiration might be and how that relates to your study of this particular course. Ultimately, conclude by saying overall why you think you're right for this course and what you're looking forward to, and that should do it just fine. If you'd like to learn more about personal statements and how you can express yourself really well, then stay tuned for another video on that where I take you through how you can express all your good points in a personal statement in a nice, crisp and succinct way. Bye-bye for now.